Hi, welcome to Friday Night Chats with Garage Geek. I hope everyone had a great week. It's a very rainy day in Los Angeles, and I love it. I came home, and my husband has a candle lit in this room, and I turned off the lights, and I was just scrolling on my phone, listening to the rain with a candle. It was and two of my dogs with me. Very, very cozy. It very rarely rains, or it rains every year in Los Angeles, but for a very short time. So when it does, it's so cool. I've got a lot to talk to you about, and right now I have like a Ricola in my mouth. I'm gonna be popping Ricolas left and right because after teaching and it's getting the change in weather and all that other stuff. So I've got a lot to talk to you about. First, a couple of announcements. Tomorrow, I will be on Jeff's Cave of Cool Books at 4 o'clock. And so please tune in for that. I'm going to be showing off some new things. He's going to be showing off some of his old things. And I think it will be pretty nice. And then on Sunday at 4 again, I'm going to be on Brucifer's channel. I've never been on his channel before. And every time I've tuned in, there's all these people there, and I've been intimidated, right? Because I don't really like large groups when I'm in a live stream, but I'm going to give it a go. We'll see how it goes. Donald Rex, I'm trying to set up a live stream with him. He said yes, but it's on me because I just, it's Friday night and I'm busy, but he got a bunch of new comics, and I want to do a live stream with him. But anyways, I want to talk to you about this. He was interviewed in this issue of Canon. Now, I'm not familiar with that magazine, but it's the 6th issue, and it says it right there, Donald Rex, and it's at least 3 or 4 pages. And he actually sent me some of the pages of the interview. It looks really nice. So I'm actually going to try to pick up this issue, and maybe I'll like that magazine. So it's the 6th issue. It looks like a kind of fanzine thing, but I don't know too much. But anyways, Donald Rex is interviewed in it, so that's really, really cool. I think that's it for announcements. I do want to say that I am supposed to do a live stream with Robert Emmons about 2 of his documentaries. One of them is Sicky's making film. Robert, I am working on it. I watched 30 minutes of it, and I have 2 pages of notes. So it's a little bit slow because I'm kind of like exhaustive, and I probably shouldn't be doing that. But anyways, I didn't want to leave you hanging. I am working on that. Now I'll continue to work on that this weekend. So, oh my gosh, I forgot to look this up. A really famous actor, Japanese actor named I'm going to look this up, Tatsuya Nakadai. He, let me go ahead, images. So, he was in so many famous Japanese movies that I saw. Learning about Japanese film, it's like when I was first starting. I don't consider myself an expert or anything, but as I watched, Japanese movies, like he was in so many of them, and he was 92 when he died. Like, he was the king. He was the King Lear figure in was it Rashomon? No, Rashomon is the one about the gates. What? Now I'm forgetting the name of the King Lear movie. Was it Rashomon? Like, I'm looking. It's this one. It was. So he was also in. Oh, Ran. He was the King Lear figure in Ran, and he was also in Yojimbo, and just so many movies. Here's another scene from Ran. If you haven't seen that, but yeah, so that's a pretty big loss. And sorry, I didn't have that prepared, and it was even on my list, and so I kind of did it off the cuff. I won a lot of 8 Doc Savage magazines, and they only put out 8. And I went ahead and I read 3 of them, so I'm going to show them off. Here is number 1. These are the ones I read. Here's number 2. And here is number 3. Now, the covers are really cool. I'm not going to say this is the best art on magazine covers, but just having this giant art on a magazine cover is really, really cool. And alongside of that, I started reading Doc Savage number 1, and so I hope that I'll be able to review this for next week. But this is look at those stains. Ew. I hope I didn't do that. I think I got it like that. Ugh. Someone was eating spaghetti while they were reading. But I hope to review that next week. But I have to say that I'm really enjoying this. And I bought the movie, and I actually paid full price for it. I figured while I'm on Doc Savage kick, I want to see the movie. Now, the movie has been parodied in Mystery Science Theater, which more about that later. I'm going to actually mention them again. But even though it might be a dud, I really wanted to watch it, and so I paid the full price for it. And for the Blu-ray, and when it comes, I'll watch it, and then I'll review it. But I wanted to go ahead and show off these magazines. So here we have the first issue. And in this issue, we have an interview with the star of the movie. And that takes up like a third of it in the back. And it's really cute because the editor, who's the editor? I think either Marv Wolfman or something. His wife is a photographer, and he was talking about how she had a crush on the star of this movie, but she was able to, go and take all the pictures, and it was kind of cute. I actually didn't read this interview. I'm gonna read it after I watch the movie. And there's the director. I believe it's the same director as the one who did War of the Worlds. His name, let me try to remember his name. George Pell. Okay, so he made a lot of good movies, but I guess Doc Savage is kind of a stinker. I'm hoping it's good. But anyways, so when you open it up, there's a pretty long story, and it's called Doom on Thunder Island, and it's done by John Buscema, Tony DeZuniga, and I mean here's a splash page for it. So if you didn't know, Doc Savage has a team of 5 guys that works with them, and when you first get into Doc Savage, it's hard to keep them apart. It's still a little bit, but they're starting to be getting their own personalities, especially because in issue number 3, the team members start having their own solo stories, which I think is pretty cool. So I'm going to say that like the art in this is fun. It's not amazing, but it's fun. But if you're a fan of John Buscema, like his Conan and his Hulk, it's like really hard for me to divorce this because I keep seeing those characters in his drawings here. It's hard not to do that. Like, look at this picture of Doc Savage. That really doesn't look like Doc Savage there. But anyways, let me, I just want to flip through this because there are some full page spreads. It's the typical stuff. When you're reading one of these Doc Savage things, they make it a point to go to all different places around the world. There's going to have all kinds of you're going to have airplanes and submarines. It's basically, they wanted to feel like a spy novel or like a James Bond kind of thing. And he's solving mysteries left and right. He has a super intellect, and when he starts to think, he closes down and trills. And that was an interesting quirk about him. Here's actually a pretty cool splash page of him. There's an explosion as he's climbing up a helicopter ladder. And I think I'm going to move on to number 2. Oh, and they go to an island, and there's all these like island of Dr. Moreau people there. They're called like manimals, and they have to fight them, and then they realize, that those were people who were captured and changed, and it's all over the place, but it's fun. It's you got here you got a damsel in distress. Doc Savage has to save her from these like lightning bolt gang. It's a lot of fun. It's pretty crazy. So that's issue number 1. I'm gonna take the time to actually put this back in the plastic so that it doesn't, get ruined or marred up or whatever. So here's the second Smash issue. Now this one, they go to it's very like Edgar Rice Burroughs. Is that right? Edgar Rice Burroughs. Anyways, they like go to or Jules Verne or both, because there's like a land, they drill, I don't know, there's like this hole, and they get sucked in under the ocean, and there's this land underneath, and there's all these mutated people. They've been mutated into lizard people because of the radiation there, all of that. Sorry, my nose is itching. And it starts off, oh, well, look at this pretty cool splash page. Now this one wasn't done by John Buscema. This one is by Doug Moench. I'm not sure how to say that. Munch, and Tony DeZuniga. So there's that splash page. And this one, yeah, like here's like a Viking. He comes to attack, and he's bringing these people. It's all kinds of fun. It's fun stuff. And they go flying down the street in a car, and Doc Savage rides it like a side saddle on a horse. I don't know. It's just bonkers, kind of fun. And the thing about it, they're really long. Like, it takes up most of the magazine, and you have to just be along for the ride. But you're gonna have fun, I think, if you read one of these. Here they are. They're looking for a wreck under the ocean, but there's like a whirlpool that's going to go through the wreck and then take them into the earth, underneath the earth. It's fun. Here they are in the Savage Land, or whatever it's called. It seems like there are so many of these. Like in Marvel Comics, it's called the Savage Land. I don't know what Jules called it, Jules Verne. I think he just called it the center of the earth. But Edgar Rice Burroughs called it Pellucidar. Yeah, and here the serpent people attacking. It's all fun. Let me go ahead and get on to the third. You're probably bored with this already. And then oh, I'm sorry. In the last one, it was about the director, George Pal. And this one is about the actor. So I misspoke about that. So if you're like a really big Doc Savage enthusiast and you're already writing in the comments, sorry about that. And then let's look at number 3. So the cover of number 3, Doc Savage is carrying a woman away on these like jet skis. Now what happens is they have this plane, and as it's being blown up, I'm gonna move these over here. As it's being blown up, Doc grabs the propellers and turns them into jet skis. And it's all very ridiculous. But again, it's just a lot of fun. I guess, with a Doc Savage, you're going to have to suspend your disbelief and just go along for the ride. So in this one, it's called Frenzy in a Frozen Hell. Maybe you want to see it without the, that. And I think the Ken Barr is the cover artist. Now, this one has 2 stories. Like I said, there's a backup story on one of the team members. And the first one is called The Inferno Scheme. And this is where a jewel heist, and there's a madman, and there's a damsel who wants to help. And then there's a lot of double crossing going on. And it takes them to a frozen, like the bad guy's lair is on someplace in like where it's frozen. I don't know where. And then, mad skiing ensues. It's all a lot of fun. And this one also, they steal the jewels by sending out these giant mechanical animals. There's that hawk. There's a bear. Here's the bear. He climbs up the side of the building and drops into the museum to steal the diamonds. Let me get to the splash pages. It's all silly. So there's a splash page there, and I swear I'm moving on. So here's the helicopter. I want to find the part where he takes the helicopter blades and turns them into jet skis. Oh, here it is. So he runs into the wreckage and he grabs the propellers and then he fits them on as skis, and there are jets, and he turns them on, and he goes flying away. It's pretty funny. And then look at this. He releases the jet skis, goes spinning, and smashes them through the window to get inside. Awesome. There's also, what do you call these? Aerial tram battles. It's a lot of fun. And then here we have the splash page for the second feature, which is called Monk. One of the guys' names is Monk. He kind of he's apish looking, and I think that's why he's called Monk, as in monkey. Now this one is who is this one by? Is it by Buscema? Let me see. No, art by Rico Rival, because that art is pretty good in that splash page. All right, so I am moving on. You've seen enough of this, I think. Let's continue. So I will be reading more. Hopefully I could read all 5 by next Friday, and then move on with my life, move on to a different magazine. But I'm very proud of myself because these actually came in the mail, and I'm like, nope, I'm gonna read them. So I at least read the first 3. Okay, what is next? Let's talk about some movies. Oh no, let's talk about the Booker Prize. So David Zalé won for his novel Flesh, and that was actually one of the books that I had read. I actually really liked it. I only got through half of the Booker Prize, so I'm going to show that to you. So here is Flesh, Audition, and Flashlight. Those were the 3 that I read, and that one won. Now, this was the story of... Let me see if I can find it. Here it is. So this was the story about Hungarian. They jumped through his life, and a lot of people didn't like that because they left out major portions of his life. But this is the book, and if you look at it, Roddy Doyle was one on the chair of the judging panel, and he described the work as singular in its narrative style. And he further stated that the sparseness of the novel invited the reader to engage with the character. I believe that. And it's interesting because Roddy Doyle won it for Patty Clark, Ha Ha Ha, which is an amazing book. And he does write in that very minimal style. He also wrote the book, The Commitments. I'm not sure if it was called The Commitments, but he wrote the book that became the movie, The Commitments. I think it's called The Commitments. And he actually wrote a sequel to that. So I actually really like Roddy Doyle, and it's interesting that he would feel passion for a book that is sparsely written, since that's the way he writes as well. Interesting. All right, after that, what else do I have? All right, we're gonna go to the movies. Movies. So I actually have a bunch of them. We're gonna start with last week I watched Marvel Zombies. So this is, I think, a 4 or 6 episode show that is on Disney Plus. Each show, I think, is about 30 minutes. Very easy to get through. It's animated. I was hooked. Now, I watched What If, and I don't know if I watched the second season yet. And I thought it was okay. And so I had my reservations about this show, and I think that's why it took me so long to watch it. But wow, was it good. And the thing is, it takes characters from What If, and it continues their story. But this is really well written. It also focuses on characters from the movies and the shows. And so if you're not familiar with the movies and the shows, that might be a problem for you. But I'm familiar with them. And I think even if you don't know all the characters, for example, there are three or four people from the Shang-Chi movie. And it took me a while to remember who one of them was, but finally it kind of clicked. But, you know, it's like that. So they're involving all their movie and TV show franchises into this cartoon. But if you don't mind that, I think you're really gonna enjoy this. Really, really good show. If you're not watching this, I was after the first episode, I wanted to watch more. I was like pumped up. It was really that good. So I enjoyed Marvel Zombies. Next, I watched Fantastic Four: First Steps. I finally saw First Steps, and I know this movie is very divisive or divisive. I loved it. I thought it was great. I had two plot points that I want to talk about as being negative. I'm not gonna do that for spoiler reasons, but there were two glaring plot holes that I just thought, kind of like, no. But otherwise, it was really a lot of fun. I enjoyed this movie so much, and I'm gonna recommend it. First of all, the look of it was really cool. I liked Herbie, and then it was really funny because my husband wasn't feeling well, so he didn't want to watch it with me. So then I told him, you know what, you got to watch this movie. It's really good. And then he was watching it while I was at school, and he sent me this picture, and he's like, that's the picture he sent, and he's like, this one is your toy, right? And I was like, my toy? And of course, I immediately knew what he meant because I've had this toy for I don't know how long, 20 years or more. I don't even know how long I've had this thing. It's just, I've just had it. It's like forever. It came with like all the Fantastic Four members, like really small. I think my dog chewed one of them. I have one left. I think the Thing was chewed in half. But I still have him. And so, of course, my husband knows this toy. But I was just laughing because, he's like, your toy. It's not a toy. But then again, it is. And so, I mean, getting that text with the picture at school, he's like, this is your toy, right? It made me laugh. Okay, so yes, Frank, that is my toy. So next, I also watched Frankenstein, the new Guillermo del Toro. So here's a picture of Frankenstein. And I was very excited about this. It was 2.5 hours long. I didn't know that. I liked it. The whole way through, I thought it was interesting. It did drag in one part, and that's because I knew the novel. I had just read it, and I was like, okay, come on, I get it, let's move on. But not because it was bad. And it was surprising to me because it was during the Frankenstein monster creature part. Because in the book, that's actually the more exciting part. But Guillermo del Toro focuses a lot and adds a lot more to the Frankenstein part where he's developing the monster. He really fleshes that out. And he adds a lot that isn't in the book. He also changes, although this is a very good adaptation of the book. It like really sticks to the book. So if you don't like literature-based movies, you might not like this. Even though this is tinged with gore, this is not like a monster movie. It's more like a gothic romance because it sticks right to the book. And I could see where a lot of people wouldn't like that. But if you do like literature and if you like the book, you are really going to like this. But he does change some very, very key elements. It seems to stick to the book, but there are some slight changes. For example, the monster in this isn't evil. He never kills anyone to my knowledge. He throws people and they accidentally die. That's because he was attacked. But he's not the monster of like, I will be there on your wedding night type of thing. And yes, he does want revenge from Frankenstein, and that drives him, but it's very different. I think that's a huge change in the story, even though it's still it plays out the same way. So in this movie, you're going to have a lot of focus on the gore, and I think it's a Guillermo del Toro movie, and that's going to keep some audience members really interested. There's a couple of scenes where they're in like the academy, and he's showing off experiments. Those are pretty gruesome. There's this one. There's an especially crazy one where he's doing experiments on people to see if their impulses can be there after death. And there's a body that's like hunched over on the table with the skin peeled back. It's a really compelling piece of art in the scene, but it's very gruesome, and there's more to that later. So I would have to say that you'd have to be able to sit through a 2.5 hour movie that is based on a book and sticks closely to a book that's not really horror tinged, but is more gothic romance. Like I said, there are a couple of changes. There are some really interesting things like Easter eggs. For example, I'll just say one. Frankenstein's there's a love interest in the movie. They totally change her, but there's a love interest, and when she's getting married, she's wrapped up in bandages as part of her wedding outfit that really reminds you of the Bride of Frankenstein. And so there's those little kind of things that are a lot of fun in the movie. So what would I say? I really enjoyed it. I would say it's a solid 3 out of 5, just because I know there's a lot of people out there who wouldn't enjoy it. And so I can't recommend it unreservedly. But if you have Netflix, I think you should watch it. After that, I have some movies on DVD. So the first one I'm going to talk about is this movie, The Illustrated Man. So I think a week or two ago, I talked about the book. And so I went ahead and I actually bought the movie and I watched it. And it's a real stinker. I remember seeing this as a young person and not really liking it, but I thought I would give it a try. I'm glad I watched it. Rod Steiger's performance is wild. Like, he's so intense. And then one of the reviewers said, he blamed the director for letting Rod Steiger chew up every scene, and that really made me laugh. Yeah, he's like over the top intense in this movie, and it's almost to the point of being parody where he's like, doing a Captain Kirk kind of thing. But he's so fascinating to watch. I think he's such a good actor that even though he's like overacting, he's so good at what he's doing. Then there's the question of, first of all, there's a lot of weird male nudity, but not female nudity. It's really strange because it's so against the norm, right? And there's just a lot of like homoeroticism in this movie that I don't think is supposed to be there, but it is. I don't know. It's just really, it was just something that like you might pick up on if you're watching it. Like, they have this guy strip and just start swimming, and they're showing his butt a lot, and then then other people are admiring it, and then we see Rod Steiger's butt a lot. Like, I don't mind any of that. It's just I always question like why is it there? Or how is this helping the story? And it just seems like it's there to get like an R rating or something. I don't know. I was happy to see it, but I was just like I don't know. Like, why is this here? Now, when it comes to Rod Steiger, you totally understand because they're showing his full body tattoos. But the next thing is they do only 3 stories, and you know the 3 stories are great that they choose, but they pick one, and I have a real problem with this because they pick one that when I read it, I was like, oh. You could even go back to my review. It was like when I talked about the story, it's like this is such an idyllic story. It could have been in Dandelion Wine. It's a beautiful story, and it's about, you know, the last night on Earth, and people just deciding that they're going to enjoy it, and they, instead of panicking, they decide, I think, to have a good dinner and to sit down and enjoy each other's company. They totally changed that in this, and not for the better. They make it, I get it. This movie has to be about, you know, nothing's got to be good in this. It's got to all end bad. So they can't tell a story that's actually nice when everything on his body is supposed to kind of be bad and evil. However, I don't like the fact that they took that one beautiful story and they made it into something that was kind of, I mean, it's good the way they do it, but I really like the story the way it is in the book. And so I was like, why didn't you just pick a different story and not ruin that one? You know, pick one of the ones that were already bad. But anyways, enough of this. This is a stinker. But I so enjoyed watching it and having it. It is so of its time. Like when you watch this, the way it's filmed, everything about it, it's really fun to watch. So even though it's a stinker, I was so glad that I watched this. So I know that sounds weird, and I'm going to continue that theme. I think I like watching bad movies. So I'm going to talk about The Phantom Planet. I mean, look at this thing. So this is The Phantom Planet. And this was, excuse me, from 1961. You could look in the back. And this man, an astronaut, he gets trapped on this asteroid that's, you know, moving around, or meteor in the, I don't know what they're called. And there are people living on it. And when you go there, you shrink. And so that's his astronaut outfit. Right, his spacesuit, and you can see him. He shrunk, and he's gonna come out, and he's gonna live with these people, and it's all very silly. They're very kind of like barbaric society. They challenge each other to duels. Here, I'll show you this. So this is where I was going to talk about Mystery Science Theater, because they actually did this one. And then there are 2 women, and he's got to, you know, see which one he loves. There's the, you know, the blonde versus the dark haired, and, you know, one can speak and one can't, and one's kind of evil and the other one's good. Then there's this race of, there's just a race. They're called the Solarites, I think. And they look like that. They're in these giant costumes, and I felt so bad because one of them had to go down steps, and he couldn't see, and he was like all stumbling trying to get down the steps. It's pretty hilarious, and he's got these like giant pads on. I mean, come on, it's so much fun. These monsters, or this other race. So, all aside, like, I knew that this was, I mean, it's on this alpha video, so I knew it was going to be bad right before I started watching it. And so I really enjoyed this. It was just so silly from beginning to end. But honestly, for a B movie, the special effects were really interesting. Like, you could totally see that they were special effects, but for what they were doing, I appreciated it. And I thought it was kind of neat. And I mean, the whole, like, here they are, like, fighting gladiatorial style. And I mean, look at that monster. Well, I keep saying monster. It's not. It's another race of beings. And I mean, the whole thing is silly, but I really enjoyed it. So I'm so glad that I own this and that I watched it. But that is not going to be the case for the next movie. Now, this is also from Alpha Video, and that's called The Day the Sky Exploded. Now, this movie is actually has some interesting history. So this movie was from 1958, and it is the first Italian science fiction movie. And it's bad. Like, it's not bad in a good way like that one is. This one is just boring. There's one or two scenes in the whole movie where you're like, oh, this is nice. And they come at the end. It's about a giant meteor that's coming toward the Earth. They went up into space. Like, they spend half the movie going up into space. And then for some reason, they like knocked a meteor out of its orbit. And now it's coming toward Earth. It's so silly. But the thing is, why is this important historically? Like I said, it's the first Italian science fiction movie. And even though the director, it says directed by Paolo Husch, it's really directed by Mario Brava. And of course, like, he's really important. I don't know too much of Mario Brava's movies, except for that anthology movie that I loved as a kid. I think I actually bought that. It's coming. I'm going to watch it. But besides that, I'm not sure if I've seen many of his movies. But he really directed this. He was the cinematographer on this. But it doesn't matter. It totally sucks. Like, all they basically take all this footage from all these other, like, not movies, like documentaries, and put them all together as a pastiche. It's like really bad. It's boring. I just wanted this one to be done, but I just let it play anyway, and the ending was okay. So I'm glad I went the whole way through it. This is a stinker. Don't watch it. Despite its historical significance, that one was bad. Okay, and I watched one. Oh wait, did I have any pictures of that one? Oh yeah, I did. Like, here's a movie poster for it. The Day the Sky Exploded. I thought that was a pretty cool. That's Oh, and by the way, they were speaking English in some parts, and it wasn't syncing up. And sometimes I wasn't sure if they were actually speaking Italian and they just dubbed it over, or they were speaking English and sometimes it wasn't linked up. I was like going back and forth, and maybe they were doing both. I had no idea. I was just like, just forget it and watch. It doesn't matter. Where no more. Okay, I don't have any more for that one. But I've got a huge stack of movies. So what did I do? I grabbed this one where there are 25 movies in one. So, I mean, I'm not going to reduce my pile. It's going to take me forever. But I watched the first one, and it was called Blue Steel from 1934. And this one was only, like, these older movies of John Wayne are usually about an hour. And I think this one was 50 minutes. And I really enjoyed this one. It's, I mean, it is what it is. It's a Western that, was made on a low budget. But every time I watch one of these movies, I'm amazed at the scenery, because they they ride through the countryside, and it's all these hills in California, and they look very familiar to me. But boy, when they're filming them, they look gorgeous, and they do all these crazy stunts that are worth watching alone. I mean, it's a movie like there's a thief, and then there's bad people, and they got to figure out who the bad person is, and then going back and forth. But there's really the guy you think is good is bad. I mean, it's the same thing. So it's good. Like, I haven't watched one of these in a long time because I was really fascinated by the scenery and just seeing, I mean, John Wayne, look how young he is. How young he is. And when I looked this movie up, look at these gorgeous posters. Like, wow, they're look at this one. these posters are phenomenal. I was just like, wow, I wish I had that on the Blu-ray or the DVD case. Wait, did I have some more to show with that one? I guess not. Okay. Oh, I wanted to show this because I saw this online and I was laughing because they posted this. This is a comic cover of this, and then someone wrote something odd about this picture. And man, you should have seen the comments. They were hilarious. These two are about all kinds of crazy comments. I was laughing. I mean, that is a pretty weird picture there. Okay. So, I did all the movies. Now, everything else is going to be books. And I'm going to, I'm actually going to review a book that I'm going to have like not a spoiler, a trigger. So I'm going to review a book and I'll save it for last. But it's about a subject that, it's going to be difficult for some people. So I will save that one for last and I will remind you again. So I'm just going to put this over here. But let's start with this. I pulled all of these books out. I grabbed all these books. So what happened was I read, or I actually listened to, Long Island by Colm Tóibín. And I'm going to have to say that I'm going to gush. This was phenomenal. Like, phenomenal. I'm going to come back to it. But I want to give a little bit of history, personal history. So, first, I went and I grabbed these books off my shelf. So there's Brooklyn and there's Nora Webster. And I read both of these. I love this book. This one, I read it and I just don't remember it. So I've got to reread it. Although I remember really, really liking it and thinking that this is much more difficultly written than this one. This one is so accessible to everyone. This is like a phenomenal book. And then Long Island is a sequel that comes 20 years later. And wow. Now what I have to say is that Scribner, I mean, look at this. The same author, 3 different size books in hardcover, and it's all by the same company. I'm like, what are you doing to us? Like, why would you do that? But anyways, I'll come back to Long Island. So I pulled those out and I was looking for them because my husband and I went to see Colm Tóibín speak, and it was back when you would go to see someone speak, you would sit there, and then if you wanted a signature, you would buy a book. And so we bought 2 books. We actually bought the soft covers for Nora Webster and Brooklyn. And he did a talk. He read, and then he signed the books. And these are one of like my prized possessions. I mean, he's an amazing writer. Brooklyn is a freaking amazing book. It's a great movie. My husband actually read this, and so that's something we shared, and he loved it, and he loved the movie. So I grabbed these, and I was like, I wrote to my husband because I was downstairs and he's upstairs. I'm like, didn't we get these signed? And he's like, yeah. But when I grabbed the hardcovers, there was no signature, and so then I had to go hunting for the soft covers. I honestly wish I had the hardcovers signed now. But at that time, I don't think I owned them. I'm not sure. But when we went to the book signing, you had to buy them there to get them signed. So after that long story, Long Island, it's like a bookend. So what happens in Brooklyn stays in Brooklyn? No. What happens in Brooklyn is kind of revisited in this book. And so in Brooklyn, her name is Eilish. She's a character. She's born in Ireland, but she has to go to the United States, in New York. And then after a while, and at the beginning she's very homesick, but she's got to keep working and doing, whatever. And then after a while, she goes back to Ireland, and she's torn between two men. One from Brooklyn, whose name is Tony, and then one who is in Ireland, in the town where she grew up. And his name is, I'm forgetting what his name is right now. Let me see if I can get that real fast. Jim. Okay. And then, like, at the end of this book, like, you're really rooting for all the characters. Like, it's so well written. And then 20 years later, this book opens up. And I didn't think it was going to be that good, but wow, was I blown away. This is phenomenal. Oh my gosh, if you haven't read Brooklyn, and you got to read both of these. So it's 20 years later, and she's married to Tony, and he does something wrong. And it's her mother's 80th birthday, and she decides that she's going to Ireland for the first time in 20 years. And she doesn't know if she's going to return to her husband. Her husband doesn't know. She has two almost grown children. And so when she goes back to Ireland, of course she runs into Jim, and it begins this whole thing, but Jim is involved with someone, and it becomes so well written, and so, like, I was on the edge of my seat as I was listening to this. I didn't want to stop it. I needed to know how it would end, and I'm not going to spoil it, but he does leave it open for another book. Call him if you're out there and you hear me. I need another book. I need to know more about Eilish's life. Oh my God. Like, and I was talking about this with a friend, and he's like, maybe he'll jump ahead 20 more years and continue it there. I don't care. Whatever you do, call him Toybin. We need more. Eilish, we need more. Well, at least I do. I'm jonesing for Eilish. And my friend, I didn't know that she had already read it. And so when I wrote to her, I'm reading, she's like, oh my God, as soon as you're done, we got to talk about this. Because, yeah, she loved it too. So there you go. Gushing about Brooklyn and Long Island by Colm Toibin. Oh my gosh, this is getting long. Okay, but I still got lots to do. I've got a couple of stories. That might be it. Oh no, I want to talk about, so I started reading these two books. I haven't finished. So this one I've had for a long time, Wild Swan, by Michael Cunningham. So he is the author of The Hours, which I have read. Now, this is a really neat retelling and modernization of fairy tales. And what I like about this a lot is that there are these great illustrations. I read two of the stories. I'm pretty sure I've read this before. I've had it on my shelf, but I read it. I'm rereading it. They're fast. They're just, what's really interesting about the writing is they're fairy tales, so you expect a certain something, but then there will be modern language and modern things in them, like, for example, cars or telephones or whatever. And it kind of throws you off because you don't expect fairy tales to have those elements in them. And what they will do is, for example, they will continue the fairy tale. He will continue it after it finishes and talk about or write about some of the repercussions. So, for example, in A Wild Swan, this is the real reason I picked this book up, because in a book I was reading, I think it was one of the odd books, they mention the young princess who has to knit the jackets, because all the brothers, there's 7 of them, I think, were turned into swans, and they return once a year. And so when she throws the jackets on them, they become princes again. But because she was rushed, the last one didn't get finished. So the final prince has an arm that is a wing. And so this continues the story of like what it was like for that final prince and how he was treated, in the future and the repercussions. It's fun. The other one is the one that I read is Crazy Old Lady, and this one is about the woman who is the witch in Hansel and Gretel. And this one, I like the way it was written. I like the story, but I didn't like how he made her origin. I think it could have been done better. Well, but listen to me, right? Okay, so A Wild Swan. I was really curious about this because I'm still reading the Otsuishi book. But as I was looking, this one came up, and it was called Strange Pictures. And this one is by Uketsu, and it's the Japanese mystery horror sensation. And I was really intrigued because throughout the book, there are all these pictures, and it tells a story around the pictures, and you have to kind of like manipulate the pictures and to try to understand a deeper story. It's really good, and it's a fast read. And for example, in the second story, here is the picture that we have to work with. And it really is a mystery, and you start delving into these pictures, and they're looking for clues. And there are different chapters, and each chapter tells a different story, but they seem linked. And I think by the end, we're going to have this really big picture, and I'm really looking forward to it. So I'm about maybe halfway, and it's very fast. I would recommend this. It's a lot of fun. And finally, I think this is going to be finally. Oh no, because I have the one book that is the caveat. So I read a few more stories in this hulking book. Now, I'm determined that I'm going to finish this. So I read a story called On the Watchtower at Plataea by Jerry Kilworth. And this was a great time travel story. It's so amazing. Like, I love time travel, but I'm so not well read in the genre. And it's like every time I read a time travel story, there's something new or interesting that I didn't think of. So in this story, there's a group of historians, and they go back in time to ancient Greece, where there's this battle between Sparta and I think it's called Plataea. And I guess this was a real battle. The Plataeans were able to hold off the Spartans for it was a really long siege. But for some reason, those historians, and what's really neat is what they do is like the historians are holed up in a tower, and they're there to observe. And so they built up this whole thing as if they're gods, and they put up illusions around it. And so like the people there know to stay away, and they bring them offerings. It's really quite neat. And for some reason, it's 429 BC, I believe. And for some reason, they can't go back further than that, and they don't understand why. Well, in the course of the story, they find that there's another group, and they are watching as well. But it seems that they're actually from the past and not from the future. And the way that they tell time travel is that it's something of the mind. It's something that they've learned that you can manipulate your mind in order to make yourself time travel. And if people in the future could do it, why couldn't people in the past? And so they believe that the Egyptians had actually developed this, and they were moving forward in time. And because it's happening, like both ends, they're stuck. Like they can't go because of that barrier. But what's really interesting is that as the narrator says in the story, like, the time is on the Egyptian side because all they have to do is wait. Because every moment that's going further, that they're actually advancing in time, and they're losing ground. And all they have to do is be patient, and they get all of history. It was actually a really cool idea. It was a really thought-provoking and interesting story. I really liked it. I'm wondering, I have some quotes from these stories. I think I have one. So, sorry. Here's a quote from it. If events follow each other, they are believed to be a story. But in a dictionary, oh no, that's not from that one. Oh wait, maybe it is. But in a dictionary, time doesn't exist. ABC is neither more nor less chronological than BCA. To portray your life in order would be... No, that's from the other book. Sorry, I thought so. Oh, wait. Here we go. Duh. Okay. Bad Garage Geek. Already too many illusions had been wiped away. Why destroy all myth and legend simply for the sake of facts? So the main narrator in this story is grumbling because, everyone wants to know every little detail about history, and every time you do it, it wipes away myth to make it fact. And I just thought that was a really cool idea. Discoveries exact a high price from the finders, who have to pay for them with pieces of their soul. Okay. The next story I read was called Alexia and Graham Bell by Rosaline Love. And this was a story I didn't like. And why? It was kind of silly, and it was meant as like satire and to be funny. And it was about like the phone not being really invented when it was, and that even though the phone had been invented now, like hundreds of years ago, her brother was actually inventing it and putting it back. I don't know. I didn't like it. I just thought, like, I don't like satire kind of stories. But I do have a quote. It's only in countries where there are no phones that people still get full value for their lives. Interesting, right? And we could say that now. I certainly understand that. Like, I love my technology, but, sometimes when I turn it off and, I can be more, focused on other things. So I that was a good quote. And the final story that I read was A Night on Barbary Coast by Kage Baker. Kage spelled Kage. And this one was also really interesting. It's about these immortal cyborgs that are created, and I believe they're created by people in the future so that they can do what they need to do through time, and they're given orders from the future, and they're basically like historians that have to do kind of unscrupulous things. And this story takes place in San Francisco in 1850, and that's what I loved, because I remember being in San Francisco, and I had to take a San Francisco history class in college. Really loved that class, and I just remember learning about the history of San Francisco, and I used to go around and I would go see all the different plaques in the different areas, and I really remember standing in one place. There's this plaza, and from that used to be the coast, and then from there on was all built. And so I remember this is also important because when they had the big earthquake, that whole area just went like this, because it wasn't really built on, like, all the homes built on the actual rock and foundation. They were more or less fine, but that whole area just was like a rubber band going up, and everything was destroyed. And I remember thinking, when I had been standing there, like from that point all the way out, it was just, built up. Because I guess the coast was just like all marshy, and they just like built that all out. But anyways, I remember as they're going through that, they're like running all through, and they're describing San Francisco in the 1850s. It was really, really cool. So there's a whole series of books, and I would actually really like to read these. Dang, I'm getting on to an hour. The last thing is, this is why I'm going to talk about not the spoiler, the trigger. I'm going to talk about a book called Suicide. And so I know this is not a great topic. A lot of people have loss and tragedy in their lives. And if this is a topic that you don't want to hear about, please don't listen to my review of this book. There's a book called Suicide by Edward Levy. And the reason I got this is because Jan Fosse won the Nobel Prize, and one of his books was put out in this, and I ordered it. It hasn't arrived yet. This one arrived first, but when I was scrolling through, I saw a couple by the same company. I was like, oh, let me try this. And this one caught my eye, and so I ordered it. It's a thin volume. It's a very, very strange book. And I think one of the reasons it's so strange is that the author submitted this, and then 10 days later, he actually committed suicide. And so this book is kind of like his suicide note. It's very, very strange. Now, I read this book and I really enjoyed it. There's a lot of really poignant parts. There's a lot of shocking parts. But there's also a lot of pretty banal parts where you're just following someone around and he's talking about his everyday life. Those are good. It's well written, but it kind of detracts from the narrative of what this is about. We start the book, and it starts off like this, right? One Saturday in the month of August, you leave your home wearing your tennis gear. And when I read that, I thought, oh my God, this is going to be weird, right? He's writing in second person narrative point of view, which means if he continues this, that he's involving me in his suicide, right? Because you do this, you do this, you do this, like I'm part of the narrative. But it quickly changed, so I was like, okay, phew, that's good. So what he's doing is he describes a friend's suicide from 20 years ago. And that happens all within like the first page. And then after that, it switches to first person. And no, it is first person, but he continues addressing the person who committed suicide. And he's actually like going through his life. And again, it's in this second person. But the thing is, he's describing things that he could have never known about. So it's really this weird, it kind of becomes like first person because he's talking, you get a sense of this is what his life is before he commits suicide. And yeah, it's all pretty disturbing. But like I said, there are some parts that are really kind of banal. You're kind of just following his life. I do have a couple of quotes. I already started reading you one. Where is it? Sorry. Here it is. He brings up some really, really cool ideas, right? And one of the ideas is that when someone commits suicide, it's like that becomes the defining moment of their life, and that everything from that point backward becomes changed or tainted with that. And everyone looks at your life in a totally different way. I think I have a quote about that. Here's one interesting quote. It's not that one. When I hear of a suicide, I think of you again. Yet, when I hear that someone died of cancer, I don't think of my grandfather and grandmother, who also died of it. They share cancer with millions of others. You, however, own suicide. All right. The way in which you quit it rewrote the story of your life in a negative form. Those who knew you reread each of your acts in the light of your last. Henceforth, the shadow of this tall black tree hides the forest that was your life. When you are spoken of, it begins with recounting your death before going back to explain it. Isn't it peculiar how this final gesture inverts your biography? I've never heard of a single person since your death tell your life's story starting at the beginning. Your suicide has become the foundational act, and those earlier acts that you had hoped to relieve of their burden of meaning by this gesture. I'm sorry, I don't have the rest. But it's a really, really interesting idea. And this was the quote I mistakenly read before. If events follow each other, they are believed to be a story. But in a dictionary, time doesn't exist. ABC is neither more nor less chronological than BCA. To portray your life in order would be absurd. I remember you at random. My brain resurrects you through stochastic details like picking marbles out of a bag. And I thought that was a really cool way of, it's true about memory, right? We don't remember everything in order. We remember things haphazardly here and there. We remember some things more than others. Anyways, if any of those quotes are really interesting and, the subject matter is deep, right? Then I think that you would enjoy the writing of this book. It is really well written. This author, I'm actually looking forward to delving into some of his other work. He wrote like 3 or 4 other books, and they were very well received. This is also strangely written because most of it is in prose, and then like the last 20 pages is a poem. And the poem is really fast, but really interesting. And then there's an afterword actually about the author and what happened. So, yeah, it's a very tough subject matter, but I really do recommend this book. Not for everybody because of the subject matter. Wow, this one was really long. The only problem is when I try to upload something that's really long, it takes forever. And especially because of the rain, it probably, I don't know, it might take forever. But anyways, let's kind of review. I talked about some Doc Savage magazines that I read. I showed off and talked about some books that I read. I went on and on about Colm Toibin. Love him. I talked about a bunch of movies that I had seen. Here we go, and one of these. I also talked about like Fantastic Four and Marvel Zombies and Frankenstein. Don't forget that tomorrow at 4:00 I will be on Jeff's Cave of Cool Books. And that Sunday, I will be on Bruceverse channel. Look out for an impromptu live stream because I'm going to try to do one with Donald Rex and also with oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Who else was I going to do a live stream with? Sorry, Stevie D. So I reached out, he sends me pictures on Instagram of all the art he's doing. And I said, you know what, it's been a long time since we've done a live stream. Do you want to do one? And he agreed. So I might be doing a couple of extra live streams this week. And I think it's time to say goodnight. If you're interested in, did I say that tomorrow I'm going to the Rose Bowl to do a puzzle exchange? It's the first time I've ever done that, and I'm looking forward to it. I gathered up a bunch of puzzles, and I hope to change. And if you're interested in that, you should check out my puzzle channel in the next couple of days because I'll post that video. And yeah, that's it. I want to thank all of you for the comments. This was really long. I'm sorry about that. But all your comments are really greatly appreciated. And I want to thank all of you for the support.